Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Open Central Asia Regional Interest Community. My name is Yerkin Abdurrahim. Today, I'm going to be your host. Welcome to the Celebrating America 250 series webinar. Today is our presenter, Ellada Mirzayeva from Azerbaijan. She will be speaking on the topic of Martin Luther King and civil rights movement. So let me introduce our presenter. Ellada Mirzayeva is a dedicated English teacher with 25 years of experience in secondary education. She holds TESOL and TKT certifications, demonstrating strong expertise in English language teaching and assessment. Ellada is a winner of the Best Teacher 2015 contest in Azerbaijan and a Fulbright T Program 2026 alumna. She is passionate about innovative teaching practices and actively supports both students and colleagues in achieving academic success and lifelong learning. Welcome, Ellada. We are very happy to see you. Thanks for your contribution to your community. It's over to you.
Thank you so much, and I'm happy to be here among you. I'm happy to be part of American independence celebrations, American Independence 250. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ellada. We are very happy to see you here. Okay, first, so you asked me to play the video.
Yes, please.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you are welcome. Amazing speech by Martin Luther King.
My first slide, please.
Okay, great. As Ellada is sharing her screen, let me make some announcements. Our session is going to be being recorded. So if you don't want to be seen in the recording, you can have your camera off. It's optional, but encourage it. And the session will provide the certificate of attendance. The link to apply for it will be shared at the end of the session. And it will be available for 30 minutes after the session ends. Thank you so much. It's over to you, Ellada. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and attention. I'm very happy to be here, to be part of American Independence 250 celebrations today. And today we gather to honor 250 years of a nation born from courage, wisdom, and an unshakable belief in freedom. The belief that was formed by the founding fathers of the nation, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and others. On the 4th of July, in 1776, the signing of the Declaration of Independence marked the birth of a new nation. At the same time, ignited an idea that all men are created equal. All men deserve justice and liberty. Today, the United States of America is a global leader. Economically, politically, culturally, and is shaping conversations on justice, equality, democracy, and human rights. As America marks this historic moment in its history, it sends a message to the world that pursuit for a more perfect union is never complete. It's like an ongoing journey. that requires every generation to struggle for human rights, to stand up for justice, and to defend freedom. Today, I invite you to explore one of the most inspirational and inspiring moments of American history, Martin Luther King Jr. and Civil Rights Movement. The story of Martin Luther King is not just an American story, it's a shared human story. Martin Luther King was inspired by the teachings of Christianity, at the same time with the principles and philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, an Indian leader who fought for India's independence from the British rule. Mahatma Gandhi used a unique strategy of nonviolent resistance to achieve India's independence from British rule. And Martin Luther King was so amazed of his philosophy, of his teachings, that he adopted his principles. The message of Martin Luther King is a strong reminder the message of Martin Luther King is deeply rooted in powerful truth that a powerful truth that injustice anywhere is threat to justice everywhere. The dream of Martin Luther King is not just for the American people, it's a shared dream for the whole humankind. A dream where people would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Martin Luther King's message still echoes across generations, inspiring millions of peace-loving and progressive people around the world. Born into a society divided by segregation, Martin Luther King chose not the path of hatred or violence, but the path of courage, wisdom, and his words. He chose his words, his speeches, his language as the most powerful tool to achieve injustice, to fight injustice in his society and also in the whole world. For us and for our students studying English, Martin Luther King's story is a powerful reminder that dream and vision of one man can change the world, and words are stronger than weapons. Martin Luther King drew strength from two sources, from the Holy Bible and also from the US Constitution. Martin Luther King saw connection between these two, and he thought that Holy Bible provided a moral framework for justice, and the US Constitution provided a legal framework, a democratic framework to achieve justice in his society. Martin Luther King used Holy Bible to appeal America's conscience, and he used the US Constitution to appeal to country's principles. So today we will explore the legacy of Martin Luther King and civil rights movement. What necessitated civil rights movement of 1950s and 60s? As we all know, when the New World was conquered, the first settlers came to the New World, they cleared land and they established farms and they planted corn, they planted sugar, they planted tobacco and other crops. They needed labor force to work in their plantations. And where to get that labor force? Of course, from Africa. And during the 17th and 18th centuries, more than 10 million people were brought from Africa to the New World. These people were carried on board of large ships, where food, water, air was scarce, and most of them could not arrive their destination, and most of them died on board of ships. But the rest of them, when they got to the New World, they were treated like savages. They were bought, they were sold, they were treated like commodities, not human beings. The life of slaves were horrible. Slave owners gave them food and gave them shelter, but they were not free and they could not leave their farms. When they attempted to escape from the farms, they were caught and they were brought back to their owners. And in most cases, they were beaten and sometimes they were even killed. So this was the life of slaves in America. And this slavery continued until the second half of the 19th century. During that time, progressive people in the northern states, they decided that slavery was a barrier on the path of development, on the path of progress. So they decided that slavery should be abolished. But people in the South that owned farms, they owned fields, plantations, and they wanted to retain their right to keep slaves, and they did not want to free slaves. So as a result, the country was divided into two parts. The northern and the terrible civil war of 1861 and 1865 began among them. Under the powerful president, powerful leader Abraham Lincoln, the North defeated the South in 1865. And also, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1963 that officially liberated all slaves in the territory of the United States. But this Emancipation Proclamation did not bring true justice, true equality, and dignity and well-being to African American population of the United States. They lived in terrible conditions. They lived in extreme poverty. They could not attend quality schools. They could not get quality education. Their job opportunities were fewer. Their salaries and wages were low compared with white people. And also, they were denied of their voting rights. They could not participate in elections, in democratic actions in their country. And when they wanted to get voting rights, they were made to pass special literacy tests, but most of them could read and write even better than those people who tested them. But nevertheless, they could not get voting rights. They were humiliated, they were segregated, and they were discriminated against in almost every aspect of life. So this was how African Americans lived in the more than 100 years have passed from the from Emancipation Proclamation, but African American population of the United States, their life did not improve. So these are some of the conditions that necessitated the civil rights movement of 1950s and 60s. Also, Black people could not use the schools, the restaurants, and other public institutions that the white people used. And their own public institutions, their own schools were worse in quality. Today, right now, I would like to shed light to Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and also his childhood. In some cases, I will call him MLK Jr. So Martin Luther King Jr. was born on the 15th of January 1929 in the city of Atlanta in the state of Georgia. And he was born in a religious family. His father was a Christian priest who gave sermons before people, before his community, and all the time he spoke about God, about Jesus Christ, about Bible, truth, equality, and justice. The family did not possess much, but they had strong faith, and they made their children understand truth and the importance of love, loving everyone, every human being, even your enemies. When Martin Luther King was an intelligent boy at school, when he was a small boy, he had a friend, a white friend whose name was Warren. And from morning till night, they played together. But one day, it was impossible for MLK to play with his friend. When asked why, his friend answered, "My father says that white people and black people should live separately, and friendship among them is impossible." Martin was devastated and he was shocked. He did not want to lose his best friend. When he came home, he was in tears, but his parents taught him, made him understand that he was as decent and as good as other people, but he made him understand that there are people in the society who think like this. They have negative attitude against African Americans, and this is called racial segregation. And they made him understand that racial segregation was wrong. And Martin Luther King said, "I hate white people," but his parents said, "You have to love everyone, every human being. The life of every human being is sacred. So you can't hate them. White people are our brothers and sisters, and we have to love them." We have to love them. When Martin Luther King was at school, he was extremely intelligent. He skipped 2 grades, and when he was just 15 years old, he was studying at a college. He was among people that were older than him. His parents wanted him to be a Christian minister like his father, but at first he rejected the idea. He said Christianity is too simple to answer all the questions of the world. Later, Martin Luther King changed his mind, and he accepted the faith, and he became Christian minister like his father. Well, his name was not Martin Luther King from birth. His name was Michael King, like his father, Michael King Jr. But when he was 5 years old, in 1934, his father traveled to Germany, and he was amazed by the legacy of Protestant reformer Martin Luther. And when he returned to the United States, he decided to change both his name and his son's name. His name became Martin Luther King Sr., while his son's name became Martin Luther King Jr. Well, Martin had one sister and one brother in the family. His father was a Christian minister, Martin Luther King Sr. He worked in a church, and he spoke about God and about Bible and Jesus Christ. And his mother was Alberta King, who was a kind and nice and musical woman, and the family was deeply religious. Martin Luther King completed his master's degree. Then he got his PhD at Boston University. And while studying at Boston University, he had a unique chance of attending a lecture of a well-known professor who had just come from India. And that professor spoke about Mahatma Gandhi, an Indian leader who used nonviolent resistance and peaceful disobedience in India's fight against the British rule. Martin Luther King immediately saw a connection between the teachings of Christianity and also the principles of Mahatma Gandhi. He was so amazed that immediately he went to the library and he got lots of books about Mahatma Gandhi and India's independence. And when he was studying at Boston University, he felt lonely. He wrote letters to his parents, and in his letters, he said how much he loved them, how much he wanted to see them. One of his friends introduced a beautiful and talented young girl by name Coretta Scott, who was from South. She was a music student at the university, and they fell in love. Martin Luther King was amazed not only by her beauty, but also by her intelligence. Coretta Scott and Martin Luther King had lots of common ideas about friendship, about truth, about justice, equality, and human dignity. So they began to date. In 1953, the two got married, and the new family started living in Alabama, in the state of Alabama. Martin Luther King found not only his life partner, Coretta Scott became her partner in every aspect of his life, in his fight for civil rights. And she supported her husband in good days and also in bad days. Later, Martin Luther King had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. Bernie Scott King, Martin Luther King III, Yolanda Scott King, and also Dexter Scott King. 2 of his children have already passed away, but 2 of them are still alive. Martin Luther King III and also Bernie Scott King. They are known as human rights activists like their father. And Martin Luther King has also a granddaughter whose name is Yolanda, and she is 17 or 18 years old right now, and she's also known as human rights activist, and she loves giving speeches before people. The family started to live in Alabama, where Martin Luther King started to work in a church. He had good reputation among people, and he hated racial segregation in his society. And he wanted to do something. He knew that something special was waiting for him. During 1950s, there was a racial segregation, especially in the southern states of the country. And white people had to sit in the front of the bus, while black people had to sit at the back of the bus. When there was no seat, black people had to stand up and give their seats to white people. This was a rule, and this was a racial segregation. But in December 1955, an African-American lady whose name was Rosa Parks, she refused to give her seat on a segregated bus to a white gentleman. And as a result, she was arrested and she was sent into prison. And Black community of the city of Montgomery, Alabama, decided to express their protest and decided to start civil rights movement. But they needed a strong leader, and they asked Martin Luther King Jr. to be their leader. Martin Luther King was young and was energetic. He had good reputation among people. He had wonderful public speaking abilities. He could easily change the hearts and minds of people. He had his own strategy, nonviolent resistance and peaceful disobedience. And he wanted to change the world by means of words. And he knew that his words were stronger than any weapon. So Martin Luther King said yes, and he became the leader of civil rights movement of 1950s and 1960s. This was not something Martin Luther King planned for himself. This was destiny, and destiny was calling him, and he said yes. The African American population of the city of Montgomery decided to refuse to ride on segregated buses, and they boycotted buses in the city. And as a result, bus companies and several other businesses suffered financially. Under the powerful leadership of Martin Luther King, Montgomery bus boycott continued for 381 days. And as a result, the US Supreme Court ruled that racial segregation on public transport was unconstitutional. So this was Montgomery bus boycott was the first important victory of civil rights movement, and it established Martin Luther King as inspirational and powerful leader of civil rights movement. Martin Luther King, during the following years, he traveled thousands of miles to different parts of the United States. He gave thousands of speeches before people, and he wrote 5 books about his fight against racial segregation, his fight for civil rights of African Americans. So he was extremely famous in his country. In 1963, Martin Luther King decided to organize a peaceful march to Washington, D.C. And before 250,000 people, Martin Luther King delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. In his "I Have a Dream" speech, Martin Luther King expressed his visions about the future society, future US society. In his "I Have a Dream" speech, he said, "I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up to live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, all men deserve justice and liberty. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day my 4 little children would live in a society where they would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream that one day little black boys and girls join hands with little white boys and girls like sisters and brothers." So his "I Have a Dream" speech was broadcast in different corners of the world and made him extremely popular and established him a committed civil rights leader. In 1963, Time magazine called him the Man of the Year. And in 1964, he was the second American to be awarded with Nobel Peace Prize. He was just the youngest person at that time to receive that prestigious Peace Prize. At his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, Martin Luther King noted that he accepted the prize on behalf of the civil rights movement. It was $54,000, and he donated the whole amount to civil rights issue. He established a Southern Christian society, and he became the leader of that society. During 1960s, the United States of America started to wage a war in Vietnam. It was an unsuccessful war. It brought unhappiness and it brought disasters, not only to the American people, but also to the poor and suffering Vietnamese people. Like all progressive people, Martin Luther King understood this, but for a long time he remained silent. But at the end, he decided to listen to the voice of his conscience and tell the truth about Vietnam War. And in 1967, 1967, he delivered a speech in New York. The speech was called Beyond Vietnam, Time to Break Silence. And in his speech, he criticized the policy of his own government. He called the United States the biggest purveyor of violence in the world. He showed that thousands of white and black Americans, poor Americans, suffer and die as a result of this war. This war is disastrous, not only for the American people, but also for poor Vietnamese people. And he called the American government to repent and stop this war as soon as possible. His speech Beyond Vietnam, lots of political leaders in the United States did not like his speech Beyond Vietnam. And even some leaders of civil rights movement said, war is not your business. And they felt that focus was shifted from civil rights. And even the President of the United States, Lyndon Johnson, was deeply disappointed for his attitude against Vietnam War because he was a strong supporter of Vietnam War. And as a result, MLK Jr. and civil rights movement lost greater part of public support. In 1968, on the 3rd of April, Martin Luther King delivered his last speech, which was titled, I Have Been to the Mountaintop. In his I Have Been to the Mountaintop speech, Martin Luther King spoke about longevity, and he said, like all human beings, I would like to live a long life. My Lord, my God has led me to go to the top of the mountain and see the dreamland, the promised land of the United States Constitution. And I have been to that dreamland. I may not be with you in that dreamland, but I assure you that as a nation, we will reach that dreamland, that promised land of our Constitution. Right now, I'm fulfilling the will of God, and I'm not afraid of anything or anybody. So this was his last speech. And the next day, on the 4th of April, 1968, he was standing at the door of his hotel room, Lorraine Hotel in the city of Memphis, in the state of Tennessee, where he was shot from the opposite building and he was assassinated. His friends were shocked and they ran up to him, they held him in their arms, and he was rushed to St. Joseph's Hospital in Memphis. He had emergency operation, but his wound was more serious, and an hour later he was pronounced dead. The assassination of Martin Luther King made everyone angry. People asked, why him? Why now? And they were angry, they were frustrated, they were in deep sorrow. There were unrests in Washington, D.C., in New York, in Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, and some other places of the United States. And people were in despair. The assassin could silence Martin Luther King, but he could not silence the civil rights movement. He could not stop civil rights movement. The results of civil rights movement. Civil rights movement of 1950s and 60s ended legal segregation in the United States. And also 1964, Civil Rights Act was passed. And in 1965, Voting Rights Act was passed. And also, civil rights movement spread the ideas of freedom, the ideas of justice, equality, and human rights throughout the world. After posthumously, Martin Luther King was awarded with Presidential Medal of Freedom and also later with Congressional Medal of Honor. And he was the third American after George Washington and Abraham Lincoln to have a special Martin Luther King to be celebrated. And Martin Luther King Day is celebrated on the third Monday of January every year. Martin Luther King's assassination did not stop civil rights movement. It even boosted civil rights movement. And his children took the torch. His wife began to lead the movement, civil rights movement, and she established Martin Luther King Center in Atlanta, in his birthplace, in MLK's birthplace. Who assassinated Martin Luther King? The assassin that killed him was James Earl Ray. He was a fugitive with criminal background. Multiple times he was in and out of prison for different types of crime. After assassination, he tried to escape to another country, but unfortunately, he was arrested and he was pleaded guilty in MLK's assassination, and he was sentenced to 99 years in prison, where he spent 30 years of his life, and he stayed there until 1998, and that year he died in prison. But until the last days of his life, James Earl Ray insisted that he did not assassinate Martin Luther King. Lots of people in the United States and in the world did not believe that he assassinated MLK alone, and he thought that maybe racists are his partners in this assassination. Even MLK's wife, Coretta Scott King, did not believe that James Earl Ray assassinated her husband. Well, there is a saying, you can kill the dreamer, but you can't kill the dream. So the assassination of MLK did not stop civil rights movement. On the 9th of April, his funeral was organized, and more than 200,000 people were gathered, and they were silently following his coffin. His coffin was placed on a wooden farm wagon pulled by 2 mules, and it symbolized simplicity of his nature. It symbolized his respect, his love to poor people, to vulnerable people, and people sent him to his final destination. And everywhere, his favorite song, My Precious Lord, Take My Hand, was played, and also his sermons, his words were played, and his word. One day he said, I wish that somebody had said Martin Luther King gave his life to service to poor people. One day in one of his speeches he mentioned this, and people also played this in his funeral ceremony, and everyone was in deep despair and sorrow. I would also like to say something about Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi, the great Indian leader. Well, the two leaders believed that justice was a moral duty, not only political goal. And they both thought that justice could be achieved only through nonviolent resistance and through collective action. Both of them believed that the biggest victory is not defeating your enemy, but transforming your enemy. Oppressors should not be destroyed, but can be transformed. So Mahatma Gandhi created the method, and Martin Luther King proved its relevance in his context. The two men never met, and they never saw each other and their relationship were not personal. In 1948, Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated in India. And more than 10 years later, in 1959, Martin Luther King decided to visit India in order to study the legacy of this great leader. And when he was in India, he met lots of followers of Mahatma Gandhi and studied his ideas, his philosophy deeply. And when he returned to the United States, he was even more convinced that nonviolent resistance was the only way to achieve justice and liberty and equality in his society and in the world. Why I chose this topic today? I'm a Fulbright T 2026 alumna, and I completed my Fulbright program in Atlanta, in the city of Atlanta, in the state of Georgia, at Georgia State University this winter. I was in the United States at the time of MLK Day celebrations, and I was very touched. I was very impressed. The GSU, Georgia State University staff, and also Fulbright staff, they did their best to familiarize us, Fulbright scholars, with the legacy of Martin Luther King and civil rights movement. We visited the house where Martin Luther King was born. We visited MLK Center, Civil Rights Center, and his grave, his wife's grave, and lots of other places that were connected to his name and to his legacy. And Georgia State University staff even organized a special bus tour to neighboring state of Alabama, to the city of Montgomery, where Martin Luther King lived for a long time, and also the Legacy Museum is located. And we visited the Legacy Museum, and we saw lots of exhibits, photos, and also documents, videos there. And these exhibits showed us the history of African Americans, the history of slavery and racial segregation in the United States. The exhibits were so touching that most scholars were in tears. And they taught us, this museum taught us that the United States has come a long way to today's democracy, and still there is a long way to go. Because democracy is not something that is finished. People build it, people protect it, and it requires constant improvement. And also, as English language teachers, dear colleagues, we stand in a unique position. We teach not only the English language, we teach not only the vocabulary, syntax, or grammar of the English language. We also teach universal ethical principles, global citizenship. We bring global issues into our English language classrooms. We teach intercultural understanding, cultural awareness. We teach respect and tolerance towards others, to our students. We want our students not just to be competent users of the English language. We want them to be active participants of global dialogues and conversations about justice, equality, democracy, and human dignity. So I strongly agree that MLK and civil rights movement is a wonderful topic to bring it into our English language classrooms, because topics like equality, justice, human rights, it boosts, encourages discussion and debate among students, which at the same time develops their critical thinking skills, which is very important in today's world. We develop their understanding about human rights, understanding about justice and equality. It gives them emotional engagement, and it enhances our students' motivation. Today, if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer your questions. And I'm very happy to be here today and to be part of American Independence 250 celebrations. And if you let me, there are several statements that belong to Martin Luther King, and I have written them, and I would like to read some of them to you. Okay, Martin Luther King said in his speeches, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Also, non-violence or non-existence. And he also said, we are not satisfied and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. The time is always right to do what is right. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? So these are the famous statements that Martin Luther King said. And also he finished his most famous speech, I Have a Dream, with this phrase, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. This is the famous phrase that is written in Martin Luther King Center and also on his grave in the city of Atlanta. So thank you very much, dear teachers, distinguished educators, committed teachers. I'm very thankful for your time and for your attention that you are here. This shows that how committed you are, how dedicated teachers you are. Thank you so much. And I'm ready. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer to your questions.
Oh, great. Well, wonderful presentation, Ellada. Thank you so much. It's an amazing presentation from you. Yeah, we liked it very much.
Thank you. This is a pleasure for me. This is an honor for me to be among you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great job. Yeah. We want to cancel. We didn't want to have the Q&A session, as we understand you are an English teacher, not history teacher, not to not to confuse you. But if you want, it's okay. If you want to accept questions, dear participants, if you have any questions, you can ask directly to our presenter. Anyway, it's a great presentation from you, Ellada. Thank you for your contribution to our community. You are also an open alumna, right?
Yes. I have completed a TESOL methodology course. TESOL methodology.
So we would say this is our mutual community. So thank you so much for your great presentation. Okay.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, dear participants, if you don't have any questions, it's okay. Dear Ellada, you can stay with us for now. We will reach out to you shortly to hand out your certificate of appreciation. Again, thank you so much. For now, you can stay with us. I'm going to make a short announcement of our upcoming webinars.
Okay.
Thank you so much, dear participants. We see a lot of appreciations to your address, Ellada. It was a great presentation from you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let me announce some upcoming webinars. Now, this is not the webinar. Our next event is Open Alumni event. You can join us, not only Open Alumni, but ordinary English teachers from Central Asia. The event is going to be tomorrow at 5 p.m. Tashkent time. And our last webinar is in the Alumni Connect series. Our presenter, Sapar Nepes Atabayev from Turkmenistan, he will be speaking on the topic of assessment for learning, formative assessment techniques. The webinar is going to be on May 29, 7 p.m. Tashkent time. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Please join us. Please follow us, be a part of our growing community. You can see the QR codes of our pages, Facebook page, YouTube channel, Instagram page. Please follow us and stay tuned. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for joining this amazing webinar featuring Ellada Mirzayeva from Azerbaijan. Once again, thank you so much, Ellada, for your presentation. It was a great presentation. Everybody liked it, I'm sure. So hope to see you one day again in our community. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be among you. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. You are welcome. Thanks for your comments, everybody, dear participants. Please complete the form as soon as possible. So the certificates will be issued within 2-3 days. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.